Gail Ann Hurd produced T2, Aliens, Tremors, and many other sci-fi classics. Learn more about this fascinating woman in Masters of Fantasy, Gail Ann Hurd, next week on the Sci-Fi Channel.
What's Lucy Lawless like without the breastplates and swords?
Now, there's a situation Scott can fantasize about. As Xena, Lucy's made it quite clear you don't really want to mess with a warrior princess. But let's get close to Lucy out of character.
Xena films in Lucy's native New Zealand, so this was one of her rare stateside visits. Even when she's not shooting, Lucy sticks pretty close to home.
What do you mean not shooting? I'm always shooting. I really only have a couple of things I like to do, apart from just hang out with family. I like to make bookcases, I like homemaking, and I like reading. That's about it. Believe it or not, I like homemaking.
Xena, a homemaker? That's one episode I'd like to see. But I bet there's some Xena traits that Lucy would like to have.
I'd sure love to be able to do those flips. But I can do those flips. You've seen me. What would I like to do? I would like to be able to leap on a horse at a gallop. I'd like to be able to do a lot of stuff she can.
I can kill you. Or I can spend the rest of my life shuttling between babbling idiocy and vivid clarity.
Playing Xena is one of TV's better roles. But being a warrior princess doesn't mean you're treated like royalty.
The two least pleasant things about my job are that you are constantly cold, wet, and in pain. I'm not in pain, but it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable being in a corset.
This past March, Lucy traded in her leather and metal armor for a wedding dress. Xena executive producer Robert Tappert became Lucy's leading man off-screen.
Fortunately for him, he's not the sort of man who wants his partner busybodying in his business, and fortunately for him, I'm not the sort of person who has any interest in his business. I want to act.
The new groom has to share his bride with her fans, but Lucy says admiring followers don't really bother them.
People are very nice to me. Long may it continue, but yeah, I've got to say, even in New Zealand, the public's very gracious.
Leah, I know you're really mad at me, and I don't blame you one little bit, but I swear I didn't know that Bailey was a bad guy.
I seem to be blessed with a job or a persona which people don't get jealous of me, I don't think. Women aren't intimidated by me when they meet me, one-on-one. And men think that they can have a beer with me.
Lucy has a 9-year-old daughter from a previous marriage and clearly enjoys the family life. But she has no plans to hang up her sword and become a full-time housewife.
I could never stop working. I feel like acting, apart from being a mum, I believe I'm a good mum. I believe that acting's the only other career choice that I'm any good at. It's the only thing I'm good for.
Well, one of my favorite authors, Michael Crichton, has terrified audiences around the world with mega hits such as Jurassic Park and Twister. But what terrifies Michael the most is interviews, and I can relate to that.
So we tried to put Michael at ease as he talked about his work, Sphere, which is all about fear.
Something put this thing out there to get picked up and brought back here. Have you forgotten the Trojan horse? It could be a trap.
Michael Crichton chose not to write the film's screenplay, even though it's based on his book. So I wondered why he passed up an opportunity that most authors would kill for.
I decided a while ago that I didn't want to do any more screenplays based on the novels that I'd written. And, my sense about it is that it's like, delivering the same baby twice. Once is enough. And I really, at that point, decided that I would either write original screenplays, like Twister, or I would just not be involved in the adaptation.
Many of Crichton's books cleverly combine science and technology. I wondered if early novels like 1969's The Andromeda Strain could become dated.
I think technology moves very rapidly, so that part of the story really tends to decay. I mean, that's one of the aspects of what I do, is that it tends to quickly feel outdated. But if there's something else going on that has other kinds of meanings, then it will hold up.
Finally, I wanted to know why Crichton, who graduated from Harvard Medical School, didn't pursue writing in college.
I was a student, and my instructor was grading me down for my writing, and I thought the instructor was full of it. So I was getting C's, and I decided as a test to give him an essay by George Orwell and see whether he would think George Orwell was also a bad writer. Turned out he didn't exactly. He thought George Orwell was a little better than me, so he gave George Orwell a B-. But I still thought, you know, if George Orwell gets a B- at Harvard, it's too tough for me, and I moved to another department.
Unfortunately, that's about all the time Michael could give us. After all, the guy needs some time to write books, right?
Log on to the Dominion this week and get involved in these cyberspace events. The address is www.sci-fi.com.
On our sci-fi continuum, here's something that takes me back a good 10 years.
Scott gets nostalgic for those great arcade video games he played when he was in high school. You know, real classics like Pong and Space Invaders.
The games are on display at the American Museum of the Moving Image. Carl Goodman, with the awesome title Curator of Digital Media, gave me a tour of computer gaming history.
Oh my God.
There's a remarkable similarity between many of these games looking back on it, and yet they all provide unique and distinct experiences. In each one, there's something new that was offered that made the game popular and interesting.
The exhibit covers video arcade games from the Stone Age in the early 70s through the Golden Age of the 80s. It begins with this contraption called Computer Space.
That very first video arcade game was based on a computer game that computer scientists would play and also themselves make on mainframe computers in the late 60s.
Computer Space failed miserably because it was too complicated, but its inventor scored a blockbuster with his second coin-op game, Pong.
The game was so simple and had to be simple because it was people's really their first encounter with computer-based interactivity.
Pac-Man rates as the most popular arcade game of all time. It was the first to use a cartoon character that you could control.
What I've heard is that the people who've created it were sitting around one night thinking, what if that pizza that we're looking at right now, with a slice taken out of it, decided that it was hungry and wanted to eat.
The exhibit reveals much about the evolution of violence in gaming. One interesting twist was this game, created in response to mounting criticism of digital violence. It showed only brutality which was morally justified.
In the era of Schwarzenegger and Ronald Reagan, that worked especially well with a game called Narc, that again justified its violence because you were on the right side and you were killing drug dealers.
The Computer Space 98 exhibit features 27 classic games. It runs through the fall at the American Museum of the Moving Image in Astoria, Queens. That's Sci-Fi Entertainment for this weekend.
Give us your comments on the show and what you'd like to see. Our email address is coming right up.